To understand the chaos brewing in Indiana, you have to start with the move that nobody saw coming. On October 4, 2024, the Indiana Fever announced that their general manager, Lynn Dunn, was being moved into a new role as a senior advisor. On the surface, it sounds like a respectable transition for a veteran executive. But in the world of professional sports, that title is often just corporate speak for being pushed out to pasture. This wasn't a retirement party, it was a quiet coup. And the timing makes it one of the most baffling front office decisions in recent WNBA history. Let's be clear about who Lynn Dunn is. She isn't just some executive, she's a legend. Dunn is a Hall of Fame coach who led the Indiana Fever to their one and only WNBA championship back in 2012. After years away from the franchise, she was brought out of retirement in 2022 for one specific purpose: to oversee a total rebuild and bring the team back from the dead. And she did exactly that. In 2 years, she executed a masterclass in team building. In 2023, she drafted Aaliyah Boston with the #1 overall pick, securing a dominant franchise-altering post player. Then in 2024, she did it again, landing the most electrifying and marketable prospect in a generation, Caitlin Clark. Lynn Dunn was the architect. She acquired the 2 foundational pillars upon which the next decade of Fever basketball was supposed to be built. She took a franchise that had been irrelevant for nearly a decade and, with 2 draft picks, made them the center of the basketball universe. And her plan was working. Under her guidance, the team made its first playoff appearance in 8 long years. By every conceivable metric, Lynn Dunn had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations. A general manager who delivers back-to-back #1 picks, including a transcendent superstar like Clark, and ends a near-decade-long playoff drought, is supposed to be rewarded with a contract extension and a blank check. Instead, Lynn Dunn was shown the door. This decision raises an unavoidable and deeply troubling question. Why? Why would an organization remove the very person who so successfully acquired their generational talents right at the moment her plan was beginning to bear fruit? The answer is that this was never about performance. It was about power. The success Dunn achieved in building the foundation was undeniable, but the ownership and the incoming leadership clearly had a fundamentally different and far more aggressive vision for what to build on top of it. They didn't trust the architect to build the skyscraper. This wasn't a transition. It was the first shot fired in a hostile takeover of the team's entire philosophy, a high-risk gamble that began by discarding the very person who made the opportunity possible. And what came next would only escalate the stakes. With Lynn Dunn effectively neutralized, the stage was set for a complete teardown of the old guard and the installation of a new power structure. This wasn't a simple replacement. It was a coordinated restructuring from the top down, designed to centralize power and execute a new aggressive vision without any internal dissent. Within weeks, the Fever installed a new power trio: President Kelly Krauskopf, General Manager Amber Cox, and head coach Stephanie White. Kelly Krauskopf's return as president is a crucial piece of the puzzle. She was the one who originally hired Lynn Dunn as the team's head coach back in 2008, and her return signaled a back-to-the-future move, but with a radically different agenda. She wasn't coming back to continue Dunn's methodical rebuild. She was coming back to accelerate it, and she brought in her own people to make it happen. Her first move was hiring Amber Cox as the new general manager. Cox is a modern, business-savvy executive with a proven track record. She had incredible success with the Dallas Wings, where she oversaw franchise best marks in business metrics and ticket sales. Before that, she was part of 2 WNBA championships with the Phoenix Mercury and helped guide the Connecticut Sun to the 2019 finals. Cox was brought in not just to build a roster, but to build a business empire around Caitlin Clark. Her hiring sent a clear message: the era of patient rebuilding was over. The mandate from ownership was to win, and win now. While Clark was still on her affordable rookie contract, the final piece of the puzzle was the coaching change. The team fired Christy Sides and brought back Stephanie White for her second stint as head coach. White has a history with the franchise, having led them to the WNBA Finals in 2015 during her first run as coach. However, her record since then has been mixed, making this a controversial hire, not a safe one. More importantly, she has a history with Kelly Krauskopf. This wasn't about finding the best available coach. It was about Krauskopf installing a coach she knew, trusted, and could rely on to execute her specific vision without question. The simultaneous installation of these 3 figures is a pattern straight out of a corporate takeover playbook. When a new CEO takes over, they don't work with the old regime's executives. They bring in their own trusted lieutenants to ensure their strategy is implemented swiftly and without friction. This new structure is built for speed and decisiveness. but it comes with a monumental risk. By surrounding themselves with like-minded individuals, they've created a potential echo chamber. If their singular aggressive vision has a flaw, there are no internal checks and balances left to challenge it. The very structure designed to accelerate success could just as easily accelerate a catastrophic failure. With the new leadership firmly in place, the real chaos began. The narrative that the Fever were in trouble over 4 minor free agents was a smokescreen for one of the most aggressive and far-reaching roster overhauls the league has ever seen. This wasn't just retooling, this was a complete demolition and reconstruction executed at breakneck speed. The sheer volume of player movement reveals a front office that was not just gambling, but betting the entire house on their new vision. The scale of the departures was staggering and went far beyond the 4 players mentioned in other reports. The Fever traded away Nalissa Smith, a former number 2 overall pick. They waived Grace Berger, a former number 7 overall pick and an Indiana native. They bought out the contract of veteran Katie Lou Samuelson and let defensive stalwart Erica Wheeler walk in free agency. This wasn't trimming the fat, it was amputating core pieces of the team that Lynn Dunn had assembled. In their place came a wave of high-profile win-now veterans. They signed 3-time day champion Natasha Howard, a versatile forward and former Defensive Player of the Year, who was immediately tabbed as a perfect running mate for Clark in transition. They traded for Sophie Cunningham, a tough sharpshooting wing known for her big personality. They added championship experience with Sydney Colson from the Las Vegas Aces and defensive length with Brianna Turner from the Chicago Sky. On paper, the strategy was clear: surround the young core of Clark and Boston with proven battle-tested winners to compete for a title immediately. But the most telling move of the offseason, the one that serves as a massive red flag for this entire project, was the DeWanna Bonner disaster. Bonner, a 6-time WNBA All-Star, was signed as a major free agent, another key piece of their championship puzzle. But just a few months into her tenure, the partnership spectacularly imploded. It was reported that Bonner had no interest in returning to play for the Fever, stating that the fit did not work out. She was unceremoniously waived on June 25th. This is not something that happens with a well-run organization. Signing a major veteran of Bonner's stature, only for her to quit mid-season, is a direct indictment of the new front office's process. It points to a profound disconnect between the vision they sold her and the reality of the locker room they were creating. Did they fail to communicate her role, or is the culture they're building so misaligned that it actively repelled a proven winner? The Bonner fiasco is a symptom of a potentially much larger disease, a front office moving so fast to acquire talent that they are failing to build an actual team. It's a sign that their high-speed, high-risk strategy might be overlooking the most critical components of a championship contender: chemistry, culture, and cohesion. As the new front office frantically reshaped the roster, a new and potentially volatile issue began to emerge from within: the team's public messaging about its own hierarchy. While the entire world saw the Fever as Caitlin Clark's team, the coaching staff began pushing a very different narrative, one that threatened to create confusion and friction in a locker room that desperately needed stability. In multiple public appearances, new head coach Stephanie White made a point to declare, repeatedly and explicitly, that veteran guard Kelsey Mitchell was the team's #1 priority, and that the franchise would continue to be built around her. This statement was stunning, not because Mitchell isn't a fantastic player. She is an all-value NBA talent who carried the team for years, but because it seemed to fly in the face of an obvious, undeniable reality. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player, she is a global phenomenon, the Taylor Swift 2.0 inches of the WNBA, whose economic and gravitational pull is unlike anything the league has ever seen. The Fever's sold-out arenas, record-breaking merchandise sales, and national television presence were not because of Kelsey Mitchell. They were because of Caitlin Clark. So why would the team publicly anoint a different player as their cornerstone? The answer lies in the complex intersection of contract negotiations and locker room politics. At the time, Mitchell was heading into a contract year and was set to become one of the most sought-after free agents on the market. Rumors were swirling that multiple teams, including the Dallas Wings and the new Golden State expansion franchise, were preparing to make a run at her. White's comments were in part a public negotiation tactic, a calculated move to show Mitchell how much she was valued in an effort to convince her to re-sign. But while this strategy may have been a shrewd short-term solution to retain a key player, it created the potential for a disastrous long-term problem. By publicly declaring they were building around Mitchell, the front office risked creating a confusing and divisive two-queen narrative in a locker room that should have one undisputed leader. It opened the door for toxic media debates about whose team is it really. the kind of distraction that can tear a young, developing roster apart. It was a dangerous game to play with locker room dynamics. The front office was attempting to serve two masters, appeasing their veteran star while managing the arrival of their global superstar. It was a delicate balancing act that could easily collapse, creating a fractured and uncertain environment for the one player they couldn't afford to fail. Caitlin Clark. Every move the new front office has made, the purging of Lynn Dunn, the aggressive roster churn, the delicate political messaging, ultimately converges on one person, Caitlin Clark. The stated goal of this entire high-stakes overhaul is to maximize her talent and win championships. But a closer look reveals a fundamental and deeply concerning contradiction in how the organization is managing its most valuable asset. They are protecting her body with extreme caution while simultaneously jeopardizing her career by surrounding her with immense pressure and instability. Clark's second year in the WNBA was a nightmare. After a historic rookie season, she was plagued by injuries, playing in only 13 games due to nagging groin and quad issues. The final blow came when she suffered an ankle sprain during a rehab session, a setback that officially shut her down for the remainder of the season. For a hyper-competitive athlete who had rarely missed a game in her entire life, the experience was described as incredibly frustrating. In response to this, the Fever's official stance has been one of extreme caution. The organization has repeatedly stated they are taking a long-game approach to her recovery, prioritizing her long-term health over any short-term desire to get her back on the court. Her rehab has been slow and methodical, gradually building from individual drills to 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 work, with the goal of being ready for full 5-on-5 activities well before the next season begins. Medically, they are doing everything by the book, but this cautious, patient medical strategy is completely at odds with the reckless, high-speed overhaul of the front office and roster. How can an organization claim to be playing the long game with their superstar's physical health while simultaneously playing a desperate win-now game with the entire team structure around her? The two strategies are in direct conflict. A win-now team built around expensive veterans needs its superstar on the court, performing at an MVP level from day one. A recovering young superstar needs a stable, low-pressure environment to heal, develop, and grow into her role. The Fever are trying to have it both ways, and in doing so, they are creating a pressure cooker. The weight on Clark's shoulders is already unprecedented. She is constantly compared to legends like LeBron James and Tiger Woods, and her name has become, in her own coach's words, clickbait. This historic level of stardom requires an incredibly strong and stable support system, the very thing the new front office has just systematically dismantled. They are not protecting their asset holistically, they are protecting her physically while exposing her to immense professional risk, wasting the most valuable years of her rookie contract in a chaotic, high-pressure environment that is the complete opposite of what a young, developing superstar truly needs. As if the internal turmoil in Indiana weren't enough, an external crisis is looming over the entire league, and it threatens to be the one thing that could bring the Fever's fragile house of cards crashing down. The WNBA is currently locked in a tense and uncertain negotiation for a new collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, with its players. And for a team like the Fever, built on a high-risk strategy of rapid change, a league-wide work stoppage isn't just a problem, it's a potential catastrophe. The standoff between the league and the Players Association is serious. At its core, the players are demanding a larger share of the league's rapidly growing revenue. With a massive new media rights deal on the horizon and expansion fees skyrocketing into the hundreds of millions, the players are steadfast in their belief that they deserve a bigger piece of the pie. The two sides are reportedly nowhere near a deal, and if an agreement isn't reached, the league could be heading for its first ever lockout, a complete shutdown of all league business. For a stable veteran team with a set roster, a lockout would be an inconvenience. For the Indiana Fever, it would be a disaster. The new front office's entire grand plan is built on the foundation of a functioning offseason. Their strategy is 100% dependent on their ability to integrate a host of new free agents, build chemistry from scratch, and give a new coaching staff time to implement a new system. A lockout would paralyze them. Free agency would freeze, trades would halt, and team facilities would close, preventing any kind of team-building activities. This makes the Fever uniquely vulnerable. Their plan requires a smooth, predictable offseason to work. A labor dispute would halt their momentum dead in its tracks, freezing them in a state of half-completed chaos. The potential WNBA lockout acts as a threat multiplier for the Fever's already risky strategy. It could completely derail their 2026 season before it even begins, effectively wasting one of the 4 precious cost-controlled years of Caitlin Clark's rookie contract. The Clark window, that 4-year period where the team has a massive financial advantage to build a dynasty, is their most valuable asset. Losing a full year of that window to a combination of a botched rebuild and a league-wide lockout would be a franchise-crippling failure. For the Fever, the CBA negotiations are not a background story. They are a primary and existential threat to their entire strategic plan. In their frantic effort to capitalize on the once-in-a-generation phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark, the new Indiana Fever front office has pushed all their chips to the center of the table. They have purged the very architect who brought them their superstar, churned the roster with a dizzying series of trades and signings, created a potentially confusing power dynamic in their own locker room, and are now at the mercy of a looming league-wide labor dispute that could halt their grand experiment before it ever truly begins. The stakes could not be higher, and the franchise now stands at a historic crossroads, facing 2 starkly different futures. If this audacious gamble pays off, the new leadership will be hailed as visionaries. They will have successfully fast-tracked a rebuild, surrounding Clark and Boston with the perfect blend of championship-level veteran talent. They will have created a dynasty that dominates the WNBA for the next decade, proving that their aggressive, high-risk strategy was the work of genius. They will have built the empire they promised, with Caitlin Clark on the throne. But if this gamble fails, the consequences will be catastrophic. The hastily assembled roster could collapse under the weight of expectation, lacking the chemistry and cohesion required to win. The leadership's vision will be exposed as a reckless and flawed overreach. They will have squandered the most valuable years of a transcendent talent, surrounding her with chaos instead of stability. A frustrated Caitlin Clark could eventually look for a way out, and the Indiana Fever franchise could be set back even further than they were before she arrived, becoming a cautionary tale of how not to manage a superstar. The Indiana Fever have bet the entire franchise on this new vision. So the question for you is, are you watching the construction of a dynasty or the anatomy of a disaster?